Showdown time for the Bush energy plan. The president begins the hard sell as prices go up, power goes out, and the plan comes in for heavy criticism, including a governor's threat to take matters into his own hands. Also tonight, a mayor handcuffed and charged with murder. And Eye on America, gene-altered food creeping into the food chain. Is it making people sick?
This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. It's not a pretty picture. Americans are paying record prices for gasoline. Residents of the most populous state in the nation don't have enough electricity, and there are dire predictions of summer blackouts from one coast to the other. Today, in the Midwest, President Bush officially put out his plan for dealing with all this. It includes opening portions of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge in Alaska to drilling, encouragement for the coal industry, building more nuclear power plants, and some tax credits to encourage conservation. There are no what Mr. Bush calls quick fixes, but the plan did draw fast criticism from, among others, Democrats in Congress and environmentalists. They call it too little, too late, and a sellout to business and industry at the expense of consumers and true conservationists. CBS's John Roberts begins tonight's coverage of the energy crunch.
Protesters gave the president a lump of coal for his energy plan today. 5 tons actually dropped right on the vice president's doorstep, along with oil drums and mock nuclear waste. It was just a glimpse of the challenge ahead for President Bush as he kicked off the hard sell for his new national energy policy.
To protect the environment, to meet our growing energy needs, to improve our quality of life, America needs an energy plan that faces up to our energy challenges and meets them.
Much of the plan is already known, but in the fine print release today, there are new proposals to review standards for clean-burning fuels, with an eye to simplifying the complex patchwork of formulas for lower-polluting gasoline. Mr. Bush would create a national electrical grid, similar to the interstate highway system, to quickly move electricity to areas of high demand. And under the nuclear power banner, a controversial proposal to consider reprocessing nuclear fuel, banned for 25 years over fears the material could be used to make bombs. Mr. Bush had barely finished speaking before environmental groups fired the first shot in a political and public relations war against the plan.
It's a recipe for more drilling, more spilling, more nuclear waste, more asthma attacks, and more global warming.
The president threw a bone to the environmentalists today, promising to use money from oil leases in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge to fund renewable resources and alternative fuels. They bit back with the first in a series of new attack ads.
Sold. Drilling rights in the Arctic Refuge going to the gentleman from Big Oil.
On Capitol Hill, Democrats, who the White House accuses of doing nothing in the past 8 years to address a looming energy crisis, happily joined the fray, promising a fight that would make the tax cut battle look like a Sunday walk.
The president's energy plan is out. It is slick. It looks like the annual report of ExxonMobil, and maybe that's about what it is.
President Bush today appealed to his critics to put aside the suspicion and the rancor and to work together to secure America's energy future. We've yelled at each other enough, the president said today, but it would appear the yelling has just begun. Dan?
John Roberts in Iowa. As part of his sales campaign today, the president visited an environmentally friendly power plant that uses renewable sources of energy. But as CBS's Bob McNamara reports, critics say this photo op presented a distorted picture of what the Bush energy plan is really about.
Clean energy now!
Sore that the president wants to step up oil and gas drilling, environmental critics said his tour of a power plant that will someday burn wood chips was a smokescreen.
All he's doing here is talking the talk, and it's just lipstick on a pig.
From the 600,000 tons of wood waste the St. Paul, Minneapolis area produces each year, managers of St. Paul's District Energy Power Plant say wood chips will be lighting and heating 20,000 homes in 2 years. The irony is, it's the kind of renewable energy use program whose funding could be drastically cut under the president's proposed budget. And St. Paul Congresswoman Betty McCollum thinks Mr. Bush is wrong.
If we don't move forward to do that, we're going to be trapped in 19th century, burn, dig, burn, dig.
Still, the president has energy policy defenders here.
42 of the 105 proposals that he came forward with this morning relate specifically to conservation and renewable energy sources. I think that's very important to have a balanced energy approach.
Here near the end of the pipeline, where gas prices and home heating costs are sky high, and where life is often more about chills than it is about thrills, Minnesota is on the cutting edges of renewable energy.
This is the largest in the world.
Today, 140 wind turbines are powering 43,000 homes on the windy plains of western Minnesota. In winter here, stoves burning corn instead of natural gas are cutting heating bills more than half. Still, Minnesota got a taste of trouble the other night.
Whoa, I thought this was only supposed to happen in California.
Big League Baseball was stopped.
We had kind of a rolling blackout here.
The actual cause was a power surge, but it was a graphic reminder of just how fragile America's power grid has become. Bob McNamara, CBS News, St. Paul.
There was another blackout in Minnesota just today. The power company pulled the plug again on some businesses there and in Iowa and Illinois because there just wasn't enough supply to meet the demand. The supply problem is even worse in California, and with little or no immediate help coming from the president, CBS's Bill Whitaker reports the governor is threatening fast, dramatic action.
6 times this year, lights have gone out in parts of California when heat triggered a surge in demand. Today, Governor Gray Davis deflected the political heat, blasting the Bush energy plan as inadequate.
I fault the president for not providing California with any immediate relief.
In a major power play of his own, Davis has threatened to seize the facilities of Reliant Energy, a Texas-based supplier and major Bush contributor, if Reliant doesn't cut prices.
But I told the generators face to face, I said, your fate is in your hands. If you don't help me get through this summer with a minimum of disruptions, then you leave me no choice but to sign a windfall profits tax and to seize plants.
All 5 of Reliant's Southern California plants are natural gas powered, supplying electricity to 3 million houses. Davis has called Reliant the greediest of all the out-of-state suppliers. Reliant wouldn't comment on camera, but the industry says takeover talk is more political than economic.
Seizing private property didn't work in Cuba, and it's not going to work in California either.
A state takeover of Reliant could backfire, scaring off other out-of-state generators. But analysts say California, which already uses less energy per capita than any other state, has few options.
The only other thing that can happen is for the federal government to take action to moderate prices. And if the federal government doesn't take those actions, the governor may not have any choice.
Some California legislators suggest creating a buyer's cartel with Washington and Oregon to jointly muscle down prices and even risk blackouts if suppliers won't comply. So far, Oregon and Washington aren't convinced, but California must do something. Last year, electricity cost 400% more than the year before, and this year, prices are rising still. Bill Whitaker, CBS News, Los Angeles.
On the CBS Market Watch, a new indication tonight of a possible pickup coming for the U.S. economy. The index of leading indicators, a barometer of future economic activity, rose in April after 2 straight monthly declines. Newfound optimism about the future sent stocks higher for a second day. The Dow gained 32 points, the Nasdaq was up 27. CBS has a follow-up now for a story we reported last night about the abrupt reversal of fortune for the mayor of a Pennsylvania town. On Tuesday, he celebrated a re-election primary win, only to learn yesterday he was accused in a murder that occurred a generation ago when America was torn by racial violence. CBS's Byron Pitts reports from York, Pennsylvania.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning.
With a politician's swagger and a smile on his face, York Mayor Charlie Robertson surrendered to authorities this morning.
Mayor, you seem in awfully good spirits to be surrendering to be arrested.
I'm still the mayor of the city of York.
A mayor now charged with murder.
You have to understand, I'm the leader of this city. And to get somebody to walk up and say you're a murderer, that's tough.
Robertson was let off in handcuffs accused as an accessory to a crime committed 32 years ago. He allegedly passed out the bullets used to kill an innocent woman. It happened back when the mayor was just a beat cop. And York, Pennsylvania, like so many cities in America, was a city at war. July 1969, a race riot here lasted 10 days. The National Guard was called in after a white mob shot and killed a black woman. Lily Bell Allen was 27, a mother of two.
And we just entered the area where Miss Allen was assassinated in 1969.
You remember that night?
Yeah, everybody in York remembers that night.
Jimmy Spells remembers.
One guy said, quote unquote, "I blew that nigger in half." So an innocent lady was killed right here on these railroad tracks in 1969.
That same mob firebombed his mother's house a day earlier. The night Lily Bell Allen drove down Newbury Street, it was dark and dangerous, and she was lost.
That lady didn't have a chance. Every window around here had a gun in it.
For 32 years, her murder remained a mystery until the arrest of these 5 suspects, all named by a 6th man who confessed to the crime before committing suicide. He also named Charlie Robertson as the cop who gave the mob ammunition after chanting white power.
I got accused of saying white power, yes. Yes, I did.
1969. Were you a racist then?
Yes, I would think so.
He was a racist, he said, but not an accessory to murder. Tonight, the mayor is out on bond. Dan?
Byron Pitts covering in York, Pennsylvania. A Florida judge today spared baseball slugger Darryl Strawberry a prison term for violating terms of his probation on a drug conviction. The judge instead sentenced Strawberry to 2 years in a residential drug treatment program. Strawberry has been battling addiction, cancer, and depression. He violated probation in March by going on a 4-day drug binge. Next, here on the CBS Evening News, Eye on America investigates genetically modified food. Did she have a serious allergic reaction to it? In tonight's Eye on America, CBS News digs deeper in a hard news investigation of gene-altered food. Despite nationwide product recalls, traces of Starlink corn, not approved for human consumption, still turn up in 10% of grain samples. The government says it is still investigating whether this corn can trigger life-threatening allergic reactions. Tonight, CBS's Wyatt Andrews shows you what his investigation found.
Last fall, during lunch with co-workers, Grace Booth enjoyed 3 chicken enchiladas. The food, she recalls, was very good, but then something went very wrong.
And I felt my chest getting tight, and it was hard to breathe.
She didn't know, but she was going into shock.
What are you thinking at this point?
I thought, oh my God, what is happening to me? What is going on? Something is very, very wrong. I felt like I was going to die.
In the emergency room in nearby Oakland, the diagnosis was severe allergic reaction. And from here, Grace Booth's story reached official Washington. At the time, the national corn market was in an uproar. Starlink, a gene-modified corn not approved for human food, had been found in taco shells, and recalls were emptying the shelves of corn products. The fear was possible allergic reactions. Back then, Booth says, she had no idea the corn tortillas in her lunch were about to be recalled.
You weren't going to the hospital saying Starlink corn, Starlink corn. This was after the fact.
Absolutely.
In the wake of those recalls, more than 50 Americans, including Grace Booth, claimed they had reactions to Starlink corn. That forced the government to launch the first full-scale allergy investigation in the history of biotech foods. It has taken months, but the Centers for Disease Control and the FDA have collected food samples and blood from 24 people whose cases were believed most serious.
Abdominal pain and diarrhea, other patients having skin rashes, to some patients, only a small group, having very severe life-threatening reactions.
Dr. Mark Rothenberg, the allergy chief at Cincinnati Children's Hospital, is an advisor to the government in the Starlink investigation. It's slow going, he says, because investigators first had to find the Starlink protein and then invent a blood test.
They would coat the bottom with Starlink corn.
Even if these tests show allergic reactions, Rothenberg believes it's unlikely there's enough Starlink in the food chain to threaten public health.
My gut feeling was that this wasn't a significant concern. This was not going to be a major problem like a peanut problem.
Right now, the length of this investigation is what's eating at Grace Booth. She's waited 7 months for some answers.
If I want a bowl of cornflakes, I want to know that it's safe to eat a bowl of cornflakes.
Do you feel that level of safety right now?
Absolutely not.
This is it here?
Yes, it is.
She still has half of a suspect enchilada. The government is testing the other half and says it will have results next month. Every corn farmer in America, every miller, every food maker, and the entire biotech industry now awaits the verdict on what it was that made Grace Booth sick. In Danville, California, Wyatt Andrews for Eye on America.
Tomorrow, more facts from this CBS investigation, including facts about the battle over how much, if any, Starlink should be allowed in food. Overseas today, former President Bill Clinton got an unexpectedly hostile welcome from some protesters in Poland. In Warsaw, for a speaking engagement, Mr. Clinton's jacket was splattered by an egg before security guards hustled him out of the way and police hauled away a teenage protester against globalization. The former president laughed it off and went on greeting the crowd in shirt sleeves. It was very different from the egg attack in Britain we reported to you last night, which resulted in a protester taking a punch from Deputy Prime Minister John Prescott. That incident set off a round of criticism today for the pugnacious Prescott and his boss, Prime Minister Tony Blair, who are campaigning for re-election in Britain. In the Middle East, Israeli helicopters pounded Palestinian targets overnight, injuring at least 14 people. As Palestinian police examined West Bank offices wrecked by Israeli rockets, an aide to Yasser Arafat threatened to step up Palestinian resistance. And in New York, a visiting Israeli official warned of all-out combat to come. Yet for now, as CBS's David Hawkins reports, most people from all walks of life on both sides carry on as best they can.
Every time Ruchi Avital gets in her car, she's taking a stand.
For us, it's very, very important to continue with our lives, to get up in the morning and go to work.
The drive from Ofra, the West Bank settlement where she lives, to Jerusalem is no ordinary commute.
Well, people have been shot and killed on this road.
For 7 months now, the Israeli highways that cut through Palestinian territory have been a shooting gallery. 2 weeks ago, Palestinian gunmen shot and killed one of her neighbors.
Now that it's just a little bit over a week since the last shooting and there's a fairly high presence, army presence on the road, I know that there are soldiers, even if I can't see them.
This is the Settlers Road. Can you see it from here?
Rashid Hijazi lives in the nearby Palestinian village of Deir Dibwan. His commute used to take less than 10 minutes. That was before the Israeli military blocked the road.
They had to build new roads, bypass roads for settlers, so they could move freely. And we can't use these roads. It's closed for us. We're not allowed to drive on it.
Now, Rashid takes the long way around the Israeli checkpoints and roadblocks. The drive along the bumpy back roads can take hours.
You have to struggle and to go to business, to take your kids to school, to live your normal life.
Their paths would cross here if the Palestinian road weren't blocked. Two people on opposite sides of the conflict whose lives are disrupted and often in danger.
You're lucky to go to work for 3-4 hours and to come back home safe. I think you'll be lucky doing that.
All Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza Strip endure the hardships of Israel's closure, but fewer than 3% of Israelis live in the Jewish settlements there. Most Israelis go about their lives more or less as usual. Security searches at shopping malls, movie theaters, grocery stores are routine.
I think that's our strongest weapon, is continuing life and showing that we refuse to be beaten. We refuse to cower in fear.
I will never give up. There's no way, there's no way to give up.
There's no choice.
No, because no choice. I have no choice. Where should I go?
So the two will continue traveling their separate troubled roads until Palestinians and Israelis stop fighting and find some common path to peace. David Hawkins, CBS News, the West Bank.
It was a land speed record of sorts, but not the sort you want to be caught setting, especially here on Chicago's scenic Lakeshore Drive. It was a 40-mile-an-hour zone, but when the police put their radar gun on Damon Rogan's motorcycle weaving through traffic, they almost couldn't believe it. The Honda was clocked at 160 miles an hour, but the reckless driver couldn't beat the charges, including speeding. All told, the fines could reach $11,000. We show it to you as a reminder of just how dangerous reckless driving can be. Part of our world tonight. Here's Troy Roberts now with a look at what's coming up tonight on 48 Hours.
When a 5-month-old baby died in daycare, his mother had her suspicions.
There was a reason why he died.
But 20 years later, is it too late to prove murder?
I just kept wondering, what did you do to him?
Tonight on 48 Hours.
48 Hours, never forget, is on at 10 o'clock, 9 Central tonight. We'll see you then and again tomorrow, right here on the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Have a good evening.
For news 24 hours a day, CBS.com on the internet and on our interactive partner, America Online, at keyword CBS News.
This is CBS.